Hello everybody, we are back with a reaction video. This time, we're going to react to this guy named MandaloreGaming. Now, I don't know anything about him, but apparently he reviews a lot of retro gaming stuff. Didn't know that there was a channel for that, but hey, I like retro games. I mean, I've live streamed Daggerfall, I've live streamed Morrowind, I live streamed a lot of old games. And I do have an original Xbox. I play a lot of old games like Stubbs the Zombie, KOTOR. I play a lot of older stuff. Apparently this guy did a review on Kingdom Under Fire, the Crusaders, which is humongous for me because I do Kingdom Under Fire lore. I mean, shit, look here. I got a whole playlist of lore. This is, of course, topics, whether the campaign of the Crusades or just certain topics of Kingdom Under Fire, like what are mutations, who is Curian, what is swamp mammoths. So for me, this hits really close to home, especially since this was a game I spent a lot of years on. Oh my god, I replayed this game so many fucking times. Now, with my reaction, I decided a live stream is better than just simply doing like a 10-minute video. And the reason why is that I think it's more authentic. You see my real reaction rather than just some fake ass YouTube algorithm bullshit where some person comes out here with like crazy color hair going, oh, wow, he said that, wow, and then they give you a super exaggerated look. I'm not that kind of person. So this is my first time watching this video, so let's see what this guy has to say about Kingdom Under Fire. I mean, he's got a lot of subscribers, 642,000. He's got a lot of views on this, 446,000. So hey, let's see if what he says is good, it's accurate. Because after all, I actually got the games right here. So let's see, what does he have to say? And also, for those of you who don't like watching reviews, just know that I'm going to be pausing very rapidly and just talking, probably, unless he's not making any points, and I'll just let the video keep playing. But I'm going to pause very rapidly at several moments just to say my little piece on the topic. So let's see.
It's the...
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that rock music, I love it so much. Bum, bum, bum,
I'm sure
bum,
there are
bum.
people out there who thought this game was a dream. Kingdom Under Fire the Crusaders is a tactical RTS, action, hack and slash, RPG, something that was
It's
Xbox
got like
exclusive
everything.
in 2004. Then, 16 years later, it got an official PC port. Better late than never, huh? This is a very basic port because, yeah, you can technically play with mouse and keyboard now, but that's like saying technically you can skip work if you light yourself on fire. I mean, you could, but this is a game you play with a controller. The only fancy new visuals are that you can turn up your shadow resolution. By just starting a game, you are treated to a huge amount of lore. That's because Crusaders is a sequel. So while I'd wager most people know...
Okay, so he's already got it right. He's got it 100% right. This guy's done his homework. That's good. Now, I do have some issues with this, is that whatever he says about gameplay, I will have zero idea about, because I've only played the Xbox. I've never played the PC port, and the reason why is that I'm not going to spend $20 for a game that I already have that still doesn't have online capabilities. Like, there's no point. There's no reason for me to buy it. I already have it. No point. It's a waste of money. I could play it on my large, like, fucking 50-inch screen TV rather than on my tiny little monitor here. It's more enjoyable. Because as he said, it's kind of like a tactical strategy game, hack and slash. It looks better on the bigger screen. Now, I do like this, though, is that what he just said. This is actually a sequel. And there's actually another game before this. Many people who play Kingdom Under Fire, Crusaders, and Heroes don't actually know that there was a game before this called A War of Heroes. It's actually rather funny is that when I do my lore videos, I talk about War of Heroes a lot. And people are like, A War of Heroes? I've never heard of this. And then they start looking up and go, I'll be willikers. There actually is a fucking game. So I do like that this guy's done his homework. And I do like that he says there's a lot of lore. He's right. There is a lot of lore to this series. And it's really surprising considering how small a series is, how much dialogue there is, how much writing there is put into this game. It's very surprising for such a short sequel. Because I've seen shorter games that have barely anything written on them. Like Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order has barely anything written in it. And that's a game that you can easily pour 100 hours into. And yet, there's not a lot of shit there that's explained. So, again, kudos to the developers, Blue Side Studios.
this game and Heroes, I'm going to go over the weird road this franchise has taken. In 2001, we've got Kingdom Under Fire: A War of Heroes. It didn't sell well in the West, but did very good in Korea.
Yep.
That could be because this game and the entire franchise is Korean. What's clear is that A War of Heroes desperately wanted to be a Blizzard game. It tried to combine both Warcraft and Diablo, and it wasn't so good at that. It also started with a huge lore dump, and combining the mistranslations and weird writing, a lot of finer details will become borderline incomprehensible. The Shrek storybook in Crusaders does cover the big point. There was a war between good and evil, and a mysterious relic called the Ancient Heart. If you see the heart, or touch the heart, or think about the heart, you turn evil. How the fuck do you beat that? Apparently the answer is God gets really pissed off and gets rid of it. So where the battle and heart smiting took place is now known as the Holy Ground. Okay, but quick side note, the Ancient Heart also resurrected and created this world's version of Sauron. We've had Kmart Sauron, actual Sauron, now make way for Baywatch Sauron. The Overlord of the Dark Legion is Rick Blood, Master of the Orcs in Darkness, Rick. A war.
Okay, so a few lore issues about that. He's not right. The Ancient Heart doesn't necessarily turn you evil if you think about it, but it does show some sort of influence if you hold on to it, which is actually really interesting considering what the Ancient Heart does. This is a bit of a lore dump here, but essentially, for Inkablosa, the god of darkness, to take over, the Ancient Heart has to be destroyed. Now, when we saw the Pope have the Ancient Heart, he didn't want to destroy it. So it's hard to say, does that turn you evil per se? It definitely turned him greedy, and it turned him very power hungry. But that's not exactly evil. If it was evil, he would have still destroyed it, causing full knowing well that Inkablosa would come. That would be evil. That's where we see the Lich kill Yanni do. But the Lich kill Yanni was evil before he even had the Ancient Heart. And he got smited because he was trying to bring the end of the world. Everyone else here doesn't get smited. So, bit of a lore issue there, But that is pretty funny, though, that he showed Overlord, another game that I'm very passionate about, that I actually live streamed a lot. Overlord, yeah, you're basically Sauron. I love that he calls him Kmart Sauron. Because, yeah, it's kind of like Ash from The Evil Dead. God. Shop smart. S smart. Just with minions.
War of Heroes is mainly generic fantasy.
They lived together peacefully for many prosperous centuries, until the day a great evil arose.
So when the first game is like this, it makes Crusaders so much stranger. You go from a typical old man talking about the Magic Kingdom, to I'm desperately trying to find the outhouse at a Metallica cover band venue. That's a bold new direction, and as I'll talk about soon, they kind of pulled it off. But we're not done yet. With its mix of strategy and action and constant metal music, I don't get Blizzard clone out of this like I did with the War of Heroes.
Hell yeah.
Since we believe the Waygugin will find this hardcore. Also, we're really gunning for the badass seal of approval this year. And maybe the year after, because then they released a follow-up just called Kingdom Under Fire Heroes.
Hell
which
yeah.
is basically the same game, but with some new campaigns and refinements. This one's gonna come up again. On 360, they made Kingdom Under Fire Circle of Doom, which removed the RTS elements entirely to make it a hack and slash.
Yeah,
this
that
didn't
game
go
sucked.
over well, but you could play as a crying elf girl who could kill enemies with her teeth. I have no clue. So for Kingdom Under Fire 2, let's bring back the RTS stuff and make it an MMO. I'm gonna level with you. I have no idea what's going on in the series.
Yeah,
so if
exactly.
something weird in Crusaders is explained somewhere else, I probably won't know about it. They tried to sell this as mainly standalone, and we'll see how they did. Going back to...
Okay, so he is right there. Each Kingdom Under Fire game is kind of like an iteration in itself. It's kind of like its own story and its own universe. We see this a lot with the world map. The world map in Crusaders and Heroes is the same because they're set during the same time, during the same stories. That's why they're kind of lumped together as the same game. But Kingdom Under Fire, A War of Heroes, and Kingdom Under Fire 2, the map is totally different. In Kingdom Under Fire 2, we don't even see Heronodon. We don't even see Ecclesia. The map is totally different. And then in A War of Heroes, the map looks somewhat similar to Crusaders, somewhat. There's some similarities, but there's like a lot more mountain ranges, a lot more stuff kind of blocking the world, and you could see both sides of the world, which is weird. It's a little weird, but it does make sense, and Crusaders expands upon that. But I do like this, though, the way he says about how Circle of Doom didn't really do too good. It really didn't. There's still a few people who are proud Kingdom Under Fire fans, but they've never played Crusaders, Heroes or War of Heroes. They've only played Circle of Doom and maybe Kingdom of Fire 2, and they're like, these are awesome. Where do I get more of it? And to them, I welcome them aboard, but I always tell them, you know, Circle of Doom was, in my opinion, the death of the franchise. It was really, really bad. It was just your typical Japanese/Korean hack and slash, because Blue Side Studios, the mains who've been developing this, are Korean. So they're going to do what's popular. They're just taking the IP, the intellectual property, and they're just slapping it into these genres. But Crusaders and Heroes defined it. It made its own series, made its own name. Instead of copying Blizzard, instead of copying like Bayonetta or some shit, they made their own thing and it worked. That's why they tried to do it again with Kingdom of Fire 2, but they decided to MMO it to make more money. They got a little greedy and it fucked them up. It cost them like 12 years of production, came out like shit. It really killed the series.
The intro, the game's premise looks pretty simple.
Don't believe me? I'll show you.
Check out these delts. Yeah.
Oh no.
Rupert, hell yeah.
Oh, God.
This reeks of the hex.
I really hope he's not going to go through
Gerald,
every
let's
campaign.
go. Essa needs to be warned.
Wait! Look!
God, we got like 20 more minutes of this, 25 more minutes of this.
Make them pay with their blood.
Yeah, that rock music.
Swing away, boys!
Just wipe out the enemy. You'll be golden. After the lore dump, you have 2 campaigns to choose between. The human soldier Gerald, who is basically tutorial man, and Lucy, the dark elf of the Dark Legion. By beating hers, you unlock a hard campaign for each faction. The hard campaigns do expect a lot more out of you compared to the base ones. It is weird that almost half the game is just preparing you for hard. It does try to ease you into the experience, but it almost goes too slowly. Gerald's missions can be so leisurely that they're basically a different game compared to Kendall's, but I'll get into that in a bit. Visually, Crusaders does some impressive things for an Xbox title. It blows my mind how many characters you can have on screen fighting at once. This was later in the console's life cycle, so they'd gotten pretty good at optimizing it, but wow. It does look like the draw distance was improved for PC, but even in the immediate area, it's an intense amount of action. A lot of maps are still drowning in fog. It's not as short as something like Morrowind, but it's a less detailed world. It basically had to be to make this many characters work.
Oh my
Even
God.
with that, there were some times where I thought the fog added mystique to a level. The forest becomes ominous, a giant creature looks like something straight out of the mist. I still wish
Shit, I didn't even think about that. The mist. Yeah, the fog in the game really added to it, and it's one of those brilliant things of game designers where they use a limitation as part of the visual. That's really strange, but very handy to see from a very popular game franchise where they go, listen, our computer hardware at the time can't render all these models and the entire battlefield. But it doesn't really have to. Because, I mean, after all, this is a medieval setting. And usually when you think of medieval England, you think of a lot of fog, a lot of rain, because that's really what medieval, well, if you ever go to England, that's what it is. The tropical climate is just pretty much non-existent. It's just a lot of fog, a lot of mist, and that's pretty much how a lot of medieval games are depicted, as England. So, hey, if we can't render everything, let's put a lot of fog. It worked really, really well. And I do like how he says it about how like there's just clusters of enemies, which was really revolutionary at the time with the Xbox. It's like, whoa, there's so much shit on my screen. I don't even know what the fuck's going on. And there will be moments, like I think he showed it earlier, where he's fighting like 6 different troops, and each troop has 30 dudes in it. So you got a good, 6 times 3, 120 dudes all on your screen? It's crazy. Now, of course, today we have like thousands of troops thanks to Total War, Warhammer, and stuff like that. But again, this was 2004. This was amazing. This was revolutionary. This was awesome. And you got stuff like bombs going off. You got flying units coming overhead spewing smoke. It was an amazing time. It was really
bumped it up
awesome.
more for the PC version, but it has its moments. Bad ones too, because the terrain generally is barren, and all of the trees and rolled objects don't look nice either and will mainly get in your way.
Really?
Sometimes there are more filled-in areas, but the biggest battles will never be here. The more a map looks like the Gobi Desert, the better chance you have of getting a big fight. The units themselves are good models for an RTS game. All of the officers and named characters also get some extra detail. Ironically, it's the cutscenes where the weaknesses really show up because they put the camera right in their faces, while they're just doing their flap breathing animation thing.
Yeah.
They can look like nightmare people, which I don't think was the intention. Still, there is some unique art direction to be found. For once, the Forces of Good got most of the varied and more interesting designs. The Dark Legion mostly has similar flavors of orc. There's green, greener, undead. The Dark Elves don't have much variation either. But you know, I give them a pass. The true big issue is...
Okay, so I disagree with that. I think it actually works well. Because you have to remember is that humanity has to rely on more, because humanity, each individual human, has just mediocre stats. Whereas the Dark Elves and the Orcs, stat-wise, are amazing. So they don't need so much different unit variation to compensate. They really don't. And it's actually amazing when you play Game Under Fire Heroes, because Heroes introduced this limitation where you can play as like Lionheart, Cirith, Marine, Rukabar, and you're limited. You're not allowed to usually have orcs in your army. Some of them you are. You're allowed to mix some orcs in there. So it's really interesting when you play as Dark Elves and only Dark Elves with no orc backup. So that means that you don't have wyverns, you don't have dirigibles, you don't have swamp mammoths. You just have cavalry, archers, and Dark Elf Knights. That is it. And it actually makes the game really interesting because you realize how, despite being just limited to those 3 or 4 units as the Dark Elves, that's more than enough to win any battle situation. Any battle situation, you would just wipe. Whereas humans, no matter what campaign you play, they all play the same. Like, you use the same support units. Mortars, longbowmen, spearmen, that's it. Every fucking game. Like, no matter what character you play as, you're gonna be using those units. So, he is right that there is more variation to the humans, but at the same time, it's really not, because you're not gonna be using everything there. Like, I'm not gonna go, oh, for this mission, I'm gonna bring ballistas. No, I'm just gonna bring mortars for every mission, because they could kill everything, and they're fast, they're able to keep up with me. It's one of those things that I find very interesting that he points out that he kind of got wrong here. Is that, yes, there's more units for the humans, but realistically, they don't have that much more options compared to orcs and the Dark Elves. Like, the orcs are really interesting because they don't have archers. So how do you deal with flying units? You have flying units that are just stronger than them. It's really tough. Playing as the orcs, the Arukabar campaign was labeled as nightmare difficulty. No, hell difficulty. And it truly was. It was a pain in the ass. It's like, oh, look, they have cavalry. Well, thankfully we have axemen, but if your axemen's in melee, they're fucking useless. So it was really interesting playing heroes.
Is the camera. It was mainly a huge issue in Gerald's campaign, but that could be because his had the most trees in it. The angles you can have depend on where you are in the map, so even adjusting it, you can still be blocked off. Sometimes the camera wants to be in the stratosphere. Sometimes it wants to dig for worms.
Yeah.
Usually it's fine and you don't need to adjust it too much.
So again, this is a PC problem. In the Xbox, I never had my camera get that high in the air like he showed. I've never had that.
But it adds randomness and unpredictability in sometimes crucial moments. Sometimes you walk through the woods fine, sometimes you can't see. That said, it's really the sound that stuck out to me. With the exception of the main menu, every single song in the game is metal. I can't stress enough how constant it is. Hearing about the story, mission briefings, the missions, all metal.
Yeah, it's all metal, you. Exactly, like, there's never a dull moment in this game. It's always metal. There's soft metal, but mostly hard metal.
Destroying their barricades.
Why is it so loud?
The rear line will attack the main enemy forces and give cover to the sappers and catapults.
This is the second mission of Gerald's campaign. This is halfway through Gerald's campaign, actually.
I'm not a huge metalhead, and I don't know how accurate I can be here. The game does have a lot of music I liked. They were not shy about the soundtrack. They go so big with it that I'm actually shocked there were no songs with lyrics in them. It wouldn't be out of place.
Yeah. They're just standing there and the fucking music's going crazy. Oh my god. This is Lucretia's 4th mission. The Glaucus River. There's a Rainier from Gerald's mission. God, is it bad that I know these missions just by looking at them? God.
Stay calm and take down that fruit. Don't be afraid.
Fuck, I'm scared for my own sanity now. Yeah! There's Rainier. He's such a badass. I love him. This is the more soft metal.
There are times when it does chill out, but it's not that often. Subjectively, sure I wouldn't listen to heavy metal back-to-back for hours on end, but this could be someone's dream game in that regard. The issue is the rest of the sound.
That's me. See, I love that sound. Ready, ready, draw, draw. And then when they're charging each other, all you hear is ah. Or when you hear the horses galloping, it actually sounds like galloping, like brr, brr, brr. It's really immersive for a medieval game. I love the sound.
For the Xbox, this game has some really fucked up audio compression.
The fuck is he talking about?
Even after fiddling with audio sliders, the mixing is just terrible. But the worst part is when a fight is over.
Like you hear that galloping? That galloping is the most realistic horse galloping I've ever heard in any video game. I don't know what the fuck this guy's talking about. Oh, this audio is bad. What are you talking about? Like, what, you rather have them quietly just pull their bowstring and pull it? No, this game's kind of realistic. It's surprisingly realistic. Like when you tell your archers to light their arrows on fire, they actually hold their arrows out with like a little bit of like cloth on it, and you see one guy with a torch go down and go, all right, light you on fire, light you on fire, light you on fire. And then they all in unison raise it up, and you hear it. It's very realistic.
Good. We got him.
Oh my god, fucking Lego!
The cheering...
He's talking about how loud the game is when you win a fight. Again, this is a PC problem. On the Xbox, I never had this issue. It was never that loud. In fact, it wasn't that loud at all. So I'm very curious about this.
Cheering overlaps per troop unit, and if you lose in a fight like this, oh my god. If your waveform becomes a solid wall, it's time to fucking start over again. To add an extra layer of madness, it's only a sometimes deal. The actual battle soundscape is perfectly fine. There can be low-quality effects that stick out as being bad, but they're not grating. Even the victory cheers will often sound normal. How it's layered is still bad, but you're not expecting an attack.
See, I don't think that's bad. That sounds
The
good.
issue is you have constant, pretty average to subpar battle sounds, combined with an occasional nuclear strike in your ears, and the whole time, metal music is playing.
Yeah, it's medieval, dude. You gotta get medieval on
The
the
music does
ass.
come together with the action sometimes, and it's very cathartic. But the game is such a noise hurricane, I can only play it in bursts. Oh right, the voice acting.
Look at the sun. If there truly is a god, he is on our side today.
God, that voice is so good.
Now, this
For
will be
General
the last
Hugh,
briefing for today's mission, so listen well.
Have you ever seen hogs do anything?
Yeah, Commander Rumen. Oh my god, I love Commander Rumen.
Ever? Now see to it. What did you do in the war?
I babysat pigs, that's what. Yeah, I love
This
it.
sucks.
I love Lucretia's campaign, dude. Lucretia's campaign was the shit, man. I loved
I
it.
object to leaving our border post to attend mass at Youngsburg.
Well, it's orders, and we live to serve.
At first I thought that was a glitch, but no.
Insulting this insulting God.
Okay, so before he says anything, the Patriarch or the Pope was censored. I don't know exactly the reasoning for it, but it was just one of those things that was censored, and I think it was because the developers didn't want to offend any Christians, which was, of course, an oversight on their part, but they're Korean/Japanese, so they maybe didn't understand Western, that we didn't give a fuck if you just said the Pope. Like, that's not a curse word. That's fine. You could just say it.
The Cadus would lead to the holy ground.
But it was kind of weird. In Kingdom Fire Heroes, I can't remember if they still had that. I don't think they did. But in Crusaders, it was definitely there.
And the Purple Army.
They're censoring the word Pope by just cutting the audio. What? He's a major player too, so this is bizarre. It doesn't...
Okay, I'm really glad he said that too, before I was going to light his ass a new one. The Pope is a huge powerhouse in Crusaders and Heroes. He's arguably the most important figure of the entire fight. In fact, in 2 campaigns, Sirith and Maureen's, your whole mission is to hunt him down. Like, he's retreating and you're just chasing him. So you have the entire Veland army, a whole nation after his ass. Then you have Hexter after his ass. And then you have the Cadus, which are the rebellion Velans, after his ass. It's insane. And then they're all fighting each other while chasing his ass. He's a big
This
deal.
explain why you can't turn off the subtitles or else you'd miss part of the story. Characters will also say capital G God, but the captions change it to the God lowercase. It'll mess up sentence structure too, like someone had just used Control F for the script. This is clearly some last minute censorship. And for everything people could get on the Catholic Church for, just mentioning the Pope, maybe a few hundred years ago in some select cities, but not in 2004. South Korea did and still does have a significant Christian population there, so I thought maybe they were pushing the boundary of some kind of local law, but no. From what I found, at the last
There's
second,
a
the developers
Ruka
were terrified that including the Pope would offend Westerners. You can't exactly remove him from the story at this point when he's so integral, so they clipped all audio mentioning him, and in subtitles, he's just the patriarch. Boy.
So I guess that was the reason. Again, I'm not a person who's going to dive into the development team and why they design stuff. I'm just going to critique it the way it is.
If only they knew where things would be so soon. Anyway, the PC release also included the option for the original Korean voice acting, which seems way better technically and delivery-wise.
Really?
For this we have been bled white. Soldiers, behold, the holy ground.
See, that sounds good.
우리가 흘린 피에 대한 보상이다. 제군들, 보라, 드디어 성지다.
Still, I don't want to be getting into the story just yet.
See, I've always been a person who didn't really like Korean sounds because, or Japanese sounds, because it sounds way too dramatic and the voices just, I don't think they match. Like Gerald's, we have been bled white. That looks exactly how he looks. That sounds in how he looks. But the Korean one, like, no, it doesn't look it. Like, his face is very stoic. So I would expect his voice to be very deep and stoic as well. Whereas that Korean stuff, that does not sound that good. But again, it's all personal preference. Even when it comes to watching anime, I prefer watching in English. Because, you know, I don't want to see where it's like some 108-year-old woman, instead of sounding like, oh, I'm some granny who shit herself. Instead, it's like, huh, yagate, hamana. No, it doesn't work for me. But then people are going to be like, in real Korea and Japan, they do actually sound like that. I doubt it. I call bullshit, but whatever. Personal preference, I prefer English.
Despite all of its many, many faults, the gameplay is worth talking about. By using your right stick, you control the direction.
What faults
the
is there in the
troops
gameplay?
move.
What?
By holding a shoulder button,
The gameplay's
you can
awesome.
the map and move your forces that way.
Yeah.
You can move all your forces at once or cycle through them for individual orders. There is a learning curve to this, and it does explain the slowness of Gerald's campaign. Despite first impressions, there is a shocking amount of depth. For one, with the triggers, you can change the formations of most units. Putting your soldiers in wider formations allows them to move and turn faster. A tight-knit formation can make a unit sneakier and harder to see. If they have shields, they're better at covering each other from arrows. Each has benefits and drawbacks, and you can be adjusting these almost as much as you're moving your army.
Yep.
However, not every unit uses these formations.
So this was the thing, is that he doesn't talk about it here probably, but when you use cavalry, when cavalry are in open formation, they do move faster, but they do less damage. But if you put them in tight formation, they're like walking, but they will chunk the fuck out of somebody who they charge. It was a very helpful tip. I can tell you that much. When I was playing Aruka Bar's campaign, in the first mission I had to kill those fucking golems. Yeah, you gotta learn how to widen and tighten right when you're about to charge. Very useful technique to do more damage.
In the case of archers,
This guy probably
control
doesn't know
how
that.
wide or narrow their shots go.
Yeah.
If your enemy's position isn't clear or you're fighting from extreme range, you need to make guesses on how you should be shooting. Or you can send a smaller force or a deployable scout ahead to act as a spotter. Then you can
Yeah, one issue I think he's going to talk about is how, like, you could send infinite scouts. It didn't matter if they get caught. Like, it didn't affect you at all. I would just spam the shit out of that.
get the exact bombardment width you need. Also take into account the position of your ranged units, where they are relative to the enemy. Is the sun in their eyes? Is anything
Yep.
in their way? There is a lot of good tactical gameplay to be had, and not all units can be set to attack and forget. With cavalry, you don't want to move them onto the enemy, but instead move through them. They'll barrel
Yes.
through weaker troops and can take out a formation without taking a scratch. You could micro them around for max effectiveness, or set some waypoints in a busy area and hope for the best.
Yeah, you gotta
But
be
again,
careful
you've
as
gotta
fuck,
be thinking
though.
carefully. Are there anti-cavalry units in the area? Where a good
Okay, good,
charge
he's
can delete
talking
a
about
unit,
it.
a bad charge into them can have your own wiped out. So if you're quick and clever enough, you can bait fast movers into spears that they can't turn away from easily. Or in the case of the
Yeah.
Dark Legion, the anti-horse throwing axes. Not everything will add up sometimes, it's fine.
It was kind of
Work
awkward.
for a tailor.
Again, these are just some maneuvering examples. In battle, you have a resource called SP, which might be special points, I don't think they say. But you earn it through general combat and victories, and gain more by pulling off tactical maneuvers. You can then spend these Sun Tzu points on unit abilities. Human archers can use fire arrows to burn down forests and enemy positions. Contrast with Dark Elf archers who can make magic arrows for extra damage. Or summon a magic fancy tree of healing.
Okay, so they don't just summon fire arrows, the Dark Elves. It's actually whatever magic you have. So if your Dark Elf archer is proficient with electricity, those arrows will become electric. They're good with ice, those arrows become ice. So he kind of maybe messed up on that detail.
Because of course they do that. There are sappers who can place Burmese tiger pits, landmines, and other toys from the Viet Cong fun box to bait enemies into, though they can also go on anti-trap duty themselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes units are led by officers who know magic.
There's the blizzard.
Sometimes you send out a blizzard or plunge your enemy into darkness. So while all of this is happening,
Dark Mist.
how does the action hack and slash kick-assing fit into it? It's a tricky situation. It's deceptive because at first it seems undercooked and just kind of bad, when instead it's well thought out, but it doesn't show in the first stages of the game. When a unit led by your hero engages the enemy, the game shifts over into action mode. Both squads engage on their own, and you can personally run around slapping people. Each campaign only has one controllable hero. Gerald is your basic sword fight man. I can't say anything bad because I make guys just like him in most RPGs. He hits with a big sword, blocks with a big sword, and hates the orcs.
Oh, this fried hog.
Yeah, it's like standard fucking main character protagonist issues.
Lucretia of the Dark Legion is all about speed and anime bullshit. She can't block, but she can dodge. She likes bullying her ex-boyfriend.
That's my list.
Yeah, Lucretia is not really like anime, I would say, but she's just the personification of what elves are, which is super fucking fast. But she does like little to no damage. Whereas in like Kingdom Under Fire 2, or in most JRPGs and KRPGs, you move super fast and you hit like a motherfucking truck, just whacking and just watching a whole dude's head come off. Not with Lucretia and Cirith. You're not going to be doing that. You're just going to be tickling them.
Don't call me Lucy, you gigolo.
Kendall is a slower powerhouse warrior. He carries a mason halberd and is a loyal servant of the Pope. When
It's a
wins
warhammer,
fights,
not a
he's only looking for
halberd,
the
but
next
okay.
heretic to smash. Rainier is the Dark Lord of Hexter. He has an evil sword and loves running around in a loincloth in World of Warcraft pauldrons. He parries by using the Force and is rumored to be Rick Blood. Of course he's Rick Blood.
Uses the Force.
I am Rick Blood.
The characters have different fighting styles, but calling what they have movesets would be generous. You have your light and strong attacks and maybe 2 or 3 unique combos per character. They also have a special execution move that does more damage but costs SP. If the hero's unit has officers in it, they can also spend SP to use the unique officer assist attack. These can be helpful, but they're things you've usually picked out far before the battle started. You never have something like a duel with another unique character.
God,
You
this
can
guy
try
must
to
be
find the
bad at
enemy
the
unit's
game.
officer and kill them. If you pull it off, morale shatters and the squad disintegrates. Certain characters are much better at this. Lucy takes a while, Baywatch Sauron can one-shot them. Usually though, half the challenge is finding the leaders since they don't always stand out. They can often look identical to regular soldiers, and you can only pick one out when you whack one and a health bar pops up.
Yeah, that's what
Summed
Lucretia's
up,
good
there's
for,
not a
is
lot of depth
spotting.
to the action mode, which reasonably you might have been expecting more out of, because the Dynasty Warriors in the room is very focused on pulling off combos.
God,
and
I
special
hated
moves.
that.
And first, looking at Crusaders, you might expect it to be a Dynasty Warriors clone. The combat here is simpler, but it's because the developers didn't want you stuck too far into it. You still have your troops to cycle back to. Instead of staying completely in the fight, you send out a cavalry charge or move your archers behind the enemy. Both tactics and pure Unga Bunga hits reward you with SP.
Unga Bunga hits.
So you could pull off a flank with archers, but then go right back into action mode to pull off an assist move. Crusaders really is
What was that dialogue? That is not in the game. What was that noise? What is that noise?
you with SP.
What was that scream? That is not in the game.
With archers, but then go right back into action mode. To pull off an
It's
assist
not in the
move.
game.
Crusaders really is
What
about
was
strategy
that?
more than anything, and this is reflected by the other side of
Oh
the game,
no,
which is
that is
battle
not in the
preparation.
game.
As you win missions, you're rewarded with golden experience. Again, this is tied to your SP levels, so the bigger your brain, the more you gain. Your squads
Yeah.
all have a level, but it's determined by the leading officer, so experience is spent on them, but really it goes through the whole unit. Which at first seems odd, but there is a good reason for this. As long as a unit has the required skills, it can convert into another one freely. An officer could lead spearmen in one mission and then use mortars in the next. Your
Yeah,
leaders
that
will be
was the point of all
specialized for
that.
only a few types, but you do have some flexibility. Due to action mode, your campaign hero is always stuck with a melee unit, but for their underlings, you can adjust all kinds of things around. You could
I can tell already that when he played the General Gerald campaign, he was using the 5000 XP glitch, which is where you Because you notice he has mortars on that one mission and paladins. So the paladin is a free unit. The mortars is not. You had to actually create that. And the only way you could create that is if you're doing the 5,000 XP glitch, which is very obvious is what he was doing. Because one, he's level 18, which if you just did the missions, you would not have that much XP available to make a level 18 General Gerald and have mortar units at the same time. But the 5,000 XP glitch is simply you just kill Rainier on this one mission that you're supposed to run away from him. But he's in melee forever, and you can actually kill him, but it takes like, 30 minutes to do it because you just have your archers spraying arrows at him. And you get 5,000 XP, you quit. Now you have 5,000 XP, even though you didn't complete the mission. Yeah. But I will say, though, a lot of his gameplay that he's shown, he's not really that good at it, which I think may be factoring into his review a bit. Because I'm noticing that some of his archers are damn near dead. So clearly he's playing the hack and slash mode a little bit too much. He's not strategizing. It's just something that I'm looking at his gameplay and I'm immediately just noticing it. And I'm just like, damn, this guy's not tactically playing correctly. But clearly he's played it several times. I'm looking at him playing and I'm like, it's kind of funny on how you're replaying General Gerald's campaign and yeah, you seem to have different units on the same mission. So clearly he's played the campaign several times. This isn't just one review. This is more like several games worth of reviews. He's just not that good at it.
You could focus on a troop type.
Damn, get roasted.
Specialization. It's also here you learn that troops are resistant and weak to different damage
yes!
types. Armored knights get owned by lightning, orcs have an innate weakness to ice, and
yes.
the undead hate learning about Jesus, which in this setting may be Orc Jesus. I may have missed that part. When you're
some here that I forgot to mention that a lot of Kingdom Under Fire people ask me. I actually get people messaging me on Discord going, hey, do you have any tips and tricks for my playthrough in Kingdom Under Fire Crusaders and Heroes? I always say, yeah. Learn poison magic. Learn earth magic. Because earth magic is poison. And no unit is immune to poison. Not even a little bit. Every single unit is weak to poison. And I think that was a bit of a development oversight, but Dark Elves are the most susceptible to poison. Out of all the races, they're negative 200, whereas everyone else is negative 150. So hey, if you're going to play the game right now, get poison magic.
When you're done with experience, you can use the gold to hire more officers and get more options. How many troops you can deploy is limited, so it's not always ideal. Instead, you're usually buying new equipment, which can have all kinds of bonus effects. These are also level restricted, so there is a balancing act between your skills and your money. Playing your cards right, you can get some absurd min-maxing. What if my hero's unit was virtually immune to melee damage, and was constantly self-healing? If you spend a lot of time in action mode, you could give your hero something like an elemental weapon. There's a lot to play around with, and to add an extra layer of greatness to the system, the units do physically change based on the upgrades.
Yes.
At first glance, it's easy to see Crusaders as a dumb metal mosh pit, but there's so much behind it. You'll never be controlling a huge amount of units, and some, like flyers, are controlled through the D-pad like an ability. This causes some drawbacks later on. The hard campaigns give you a ton of freedom, but what's actually viable is much more limited. Your enemies are far more reactive, and now they cast spells like Merlin has learned he has only a week to live. Later missions become pure endurance. Where healing magic can be incredibly helpful before, you need it now. If you became reliant on abilities instead of movement and formations, that'll really hurt you in these sections.
See how wounded he is right here? He's not playing good. I can tell already he's not playing good. Because, on Kendall's first mission, it would be my infantry unit that would be probably half dead, and Kendall would probably lose a third, but my archers would still be full HP. So he's clearly, not microing appropriately.
It expects more clever maneuvering from you here than ever.
Oh my god, how is his Orc Riders dying this early in the campaign? Rainier being low at this point, this is the beginning of Rainier's campaign. This is actually the beginning of the fucking mission too. I'd expect Rainier to be at half for the entire game, just because it's really brutal, all these level fucking 14s you're fighting. But his orc should not be that dead.
Ever before. Which is cool and I like that, but it becomes clear a lot of fun options you had before will melt away as the stakes raise. Things can start feeling even more repetitive than they were before. If you like the proper massive battles, there's gonna be a lot of them. So that brings me to the story. The overall points are very simple, but there are finer details I'm not even going to bother to bring up. There's a lot of political details that mainly rely on you knowing about the first game, and other points aren't addressed in this game but instead in Heroes, which is both a prequel and happening at the same time. So the story isn't all here to begin with. Dark Elves are ruled by vampires, but there are High Elves who want to rebel, but they use the terms interchangeably.
So Haranadin finally falls under this high elf's feet.
Is this not the first time you're leading an army this large, my dark elf?
And look, I don't give a shit. In the campaign map, you can get some story, manage your army, and poke at some lore tidbits. A lot of information can come from eavesdropping at pubs. Gerald's campaign might have the least information here because the pub is full of people complaining about the elves, or as they call them, the darks.
Boss, dogs are coming from the southwest.
Those dark...
Yeah, there's a lot of lore in this game, and if you're just a casual player, you're not going to pick up on a lot of it. In fact, when we go to my lore videos, where is it? Humans, the evilest race in Kingdom Under Fire. Yeah, I had to like do a lot of digging. And when you get to Haranadin in General Gerald's campaign, you actually eavesdrop on the soldiers and they talk about how there's a carnival coming this year where kids just take shots at captured orcs, which is pretty fucked up and pretty cruel considering orcs are people, you know? So there's a lot of lore in this game, a lot. And it takes several playthroughs and it takes several, I would say minutes, not hours, but minutes of you doing background research on A War of Heroes for you to fill in the gaps into exactly what's going on. But that adds to it. It adds to it a lot. Because again, if your story doesn't draw people in to want to learn more, then your story's bad. He's saying it's simple points, point. I disagree. I think that the points are actually very complicated and very interesting when you consider the political situations, what's going on in the world. It's very interesting the more deeper you get into it. That's why I do lore on it. If it was very simple, I would not be doing lore on it.
It's all along. Look what those darks did to our people. You go to bars where generic rock plays and overhear people loudly complaining about darks. This isn't my first rodeo with this. So unfortunate translation aside, that's probably the most interesting thing in Gerald's campaign. He is the most Xbox game protagonist who wants to wipe out the enemy and get revenge. In retrospect, it's neat, but it's a horribly generic first impression for the campaigns. Lucy's campaign is more entertaining, but also for a dumb reason. Instead of their dialogue being, "We must wipe out the enemy and defeat the evil," they argue constantly. They try to bring up the elf political situation, but it's basically a joke.
because it's good.
Like the cast of the Jersey Shores trying to do a table reading of the Council of Rivendell, but there was a party the night before where everyone cheated on everyone, so they keep breaking character to yell at each other. They go to meet the Dark Lord of the Orcs, and this is their first reaction.
Rainier has arrived.
Wow. Finally in the flesh. Oh my god, he's ripped.
Evolve back into dry politics.
So yeah, that's the point though. Because again, this is about the lore of the universe. Right now, Veland isn't under threat. They're at war with the humans, but they're not threatened by the humans. That's a totally different subject. This is more of a political arguing situation where right now, Veland is so big. They own like half the world by this point. They have no competition. Humanity may be at war with them, but they're safe. They're not worried about losing this war. They're more worried about winning because they go, if we win, what do we do? Because now we own the entire world. That's too much for our government to handle. So maybe we're going to have to give Dark Elves power instead of vampires. This is why they had to keep breaking character and talking about it. Now, as far as the Lucretia moment here where she's hitting on Rainier going, damn, he's ripped, he's got abs. It's about a lore thing where Dark Elf women are very aggressive and very vulgar, whereas the men are more into scholarly, philosophical pursuits, but the women are more aggressive, more violent, and of course, more vulgar. So, again, it's more of a lore mix-up I'm hearing from this guy, where he's just not really understanding the situation of what's going on in the Kingdom Under Fire universe. But that's fine, because as I said, he looks like a casual player, because he's not really playing that well, which is fine. It's just, when you make a big review about a game like this, you have to be a little cautious how you say things.
But good god, it's something. Kendall is also wipe out the enemy man, but he is uncovering something. His campaign takes a dramatic turn, and I would say the exact same thing about Rick Blood's campaign. Both are fighting for control of the ancient heart, but something doesn't seem right. Also, the orcs in his pub really just want to farm.
Yeah.
Sometimes they want to use the enemy as fertilizer, but they really love farming. And not all of them want to eat man flesh. These are weird orcs. Anyway, if you don't want spoilers, go to here.
Do we want to skip? Do we want to? Because, I mean, I cover the lore on this. I really don't think he's going to fuck it up. But fuck it, let's go through it. Fuck it, it's like 5
Okay,
extra
so remember
minutes.
the village burning in the beginning? That was a false flag attack by other humans. Again, the details are in the next game. The Pope received a vision from God to destroy the ancient heart, but so did someone else, a man named Walter. Walter was going to make a secret alliance with dark elves who didn't like being ruled by vampires to help him find the heart.
The Crusaders,
As you'd expect, this kind of team-up would be very frowned upon, so they had to do it in secret. A nearby villager saw the meeting and ran home. To keep the secret, Walter and his troops would have to slaughter them all. This is the first mission of Walter's campaign in Heroes, and it's pretty brutal.
Oh yeah.
As the war kicks off...
Yeah, he didn't show the other part, but when you're burning the village down, they're even screaming at you, "For God's sake, there's women and fucking children here. What are you doing?" And they're just like... And Walter, he is stoic. He's just ignoring him, going, "Don't worry, God will have mercy on your soul." And he just bashes the dude's fucking head in. It's brutal. It's actually so brutal that after that mission, one of Walter's own soldiers hangs himself because he can't cope with the guilt of what he has done, like what evil deed he has done. But again, it's all for a righteous reason. It's a really good piece of lore. I love it. But they needed to destroy the village for 2 reasons. 1, to hide what they were doing, but 2, to instigate Hronodin into war, because Hronodin really doesn't want to go to war.
Walter does manage to get the heart, but the Pope for some reason says that Walter has stolen it. So the Pope uses Kendall to try and hunt him down and retrieve it. Kendall does catch up with Walter, but Walter claims the Pope wants to keep the heart for himself. Why would the Pope not want to break what God told him to? In Rick Blood's campaign, it's revealed that the heart has direct control over him. Whoever has it can directly puppet him, so he's trying to find it for himself to stop this. He breaks away from his own homeland and fights everybody on the way to the heart. He's desperate to control his own destiny. In Gerald's campaign, he's just the big evil bad guy. And in a terrible slow-motion cutscene, Rick rolls one of his friends directly into oblivion. But he doesn't slaughter everyone else. Then, despite the efforts of everyone, Walter manages to fulfill God's plan and break the heart, giving a pre-rendered cutscene for the first time in the game.
Is he seriously not going to talk about the Altar of Nauart? The Altar of Nauart was the most insane battle I have ever seen in any universe to date. Even Warhammer End Times was not this fucking insane. You had the Patriarchal Guard fighting everybody at the same time. Mind you, the Patriarchal Guard were these elites of the elites, highly educated, highly skilled, highly trained, seen many fights and battles, soldiers fighting everybody. They're fighting the Ecclesian Reclamation Army, they were fighting the Hronodin Army, they were fighting the Cadus, they were fighting the Hexter Army, and they were fighting Velon. That's 6 armies that they were fighting, and they actually held their ground. They held their ground for like 2 weeks. That was it. That's amazing. 2 weeks against the world? Damn. Like, it was a crazy fight. And I really enjoyed playing it from Rainier's side to Kendall's side to Walter's side. It was awesome. It was like, holy crap. I am just fighting everybody, cleaving my way to the altar to stop Walter from destroying the ancient heart. It was awesome. It was awesome as fuck. I'm surprised he didn't say more about it. He's really like skimming the details here. He's not covering how awesome of a situation this was. This part was really unexpected though. Like, this came out of nowhere. What happened next? Hell yeah, Incublosa. Because by this point in the campaign, no one really knew what was going to happen, and Rainier wasn't willing to tell us, the audience, what would happen if it got destroyed.
Come from?
Yeah. A lot of people compare this to Berserk, and it kind of has similarities, but not quite. Because it's not that personal element that Berserk had. This was more of a martyr situation, where a guy genuinely believed he was doing the right thing. Whereas in Berserk, it's more of a selfish reason. A lot of people compare that.
The heart starts what looks like the Advent. It's kind of amazing. Nothing to this point indicated the game would go to this kind of scale.
Exactly.
Anyhow, that's when the Demon Swarm begins.
Yeah. Demon Swarm's one way of putting it. Yeah, it was a fuck fest.
The next missions get different.
It actually caught me off guard fighting all this shit. Look at them! Look at them! They're all level 50s and he's level 28. This was a fuck fest. Fighting all these Incublosa.
He is now an apocalyptic swarm of demons. The world is now threatened by a cosmic horror. The demons
This is him defending Ecclesia.
will consume all of life and usher in the Age of Darkness. Without the heart, Baywatch Sauron will slowly become mortal and one day die. He's just as horrified as everyone else.
What have the humans done? This is
Yep.
No.
And it's at this point in the campaign you realize that Rainier's the good guy. This whole time, he's the good guy. Because he's trying to stop this the entire time. But everyone else didn't realize it until
Rick
now.
Blood initiates peace talks with everyone and unites the world against the threat. He explains that there's a god of light and darkness, but only one can be awake at a time. Whenever the heart deteriorates from the ravages of time, one god awakens and the other goes to sleep. It's actually supposed to be the Age of Darkness, but someone had destroyed the last heart early. So
Alright, that's not true. No one destroyed the last heart early. What it was Nibel refused to give up power. So Ankablos had to stay in his dimension. Because whoever is ruling at that time is the one who's got the power. So
Blosa, the god of darkness, has successfully tricked his time back. Rick Blood becomes the hero in uniting the world and says things that I would never imagine from this character design.
I want to return the world to the Age of Light.
It's far from the first game to pull out the third faction who's a threat to everyone, but it does it in such an interesting and unexpected way. Generic Xbox man and his heroism are just a pawn for greater schemes. Religion itself is mostly wrong and there are just Lovecraftian elder gods. The immortal Dark Lord figure knows all of this and has been working with it in mind. This story has some fascinating elements, but a lot of execution up until now has been terrible.
Heard you might get promoted soon. Way to go, Lucy.
what?
No thanks to you, dumbass.
While this only happens at the tail end of the hard campaigns, they both have the most torturous final mission possible. It's the same for each too. Pierce the surface.
I don't know what the fuck this guy's talking about how it's like terribly executed. I thought it was executed great. Here you got General Gerald, who's so focused on his own personal aspect. And he's trying to understand where he fits in the world by being the general. But he's not quite understanding because he's not smart enough. So you have to deal with his limitations, which is perfect. It actually works really well. Then you got Lucretia, who's worried more about the political situation in Velon than she is about the war. So she may be a part of the war, may be leading its efforts, but really her mind is all about her personal relationship to her rebellious boyfriend, who is actually the head of the Cadus, the head of the rebellion, and she's trying to keep it secret while dealing with this vampire overseer who's not letting her have a moment of privacy the entire campaign. It was very interesting campaigns. I don't know what he's talking about by saying that these are terribly executed. It works really well in cohesion when all the campaigns are brought together. Even standalone, each campaign works really, really well. They're individual stories, and some of them are more personal rather than global. Like Rainier, you're not focused on his personal relationship. You don't care if he's got a swinging hard-on for Lionheart, and that's why he keeps his delicious butt boy near him at all times. No, you don't know about that at all. You're actually more interested in what is going on in the world. Kendall, you're a little more worried about what's going on in Ecclesia, but also more about what's going on in the world. That's why he talks about Ecclesia a few times, but mostly he's focused on the world. But if you play Cirith, Cirith's focused on herself. Marine, she's focused on Velond. She doesn't care what's going on to the world. The world's literally crumbling in Marine's campaign, but she's cared about Velond. How are we going to survive this? So it's different in every single campaign how it is that it works out. The fact that he's just lumping it all up together and just saying it's terrible is really just, that's kind of ignorant on his part.
Of Enkablosa with a flying unit, then conduct a ritual to get inside of it. The camera has generally been better in the hard campaigns, but now, this is all trees. Swarms of demons packed inside a giant forest during a
God, they're on
snowstorm,
level 50.
and the map is laid out like a canyon that you need to snake through. If you pull it off, the mission then begins a second part, which is killing the avatar of the Dark God from inside of him. I've gotta say, when I started the game, I did not see things going this way.
Yes.
But Halloween is right around the corner. The K-Berserk mission sucks in a lot of ways. It doesn't feel like an ultimate test of your tactics or anything you learned. Inside the Eclipse is slightly better, but it's a slog of a battle up until then. It is fun blowing up demons with artillery, but they managed to make that get old. I should never be tired of shelling demons. When you win, you do get to see it die and explode, which is satisfying, but the epilogues after that are weak. There are a lot of tidbits here, but out of everything, I mainly recall how many ex-girlfriends got credits. Imagine if every game did that. Crusaders is incredibly ambitious, and especially for an Xbox game. There's a lot of strategic depth to it and many ways to play out missions. It's a full-length game just running through all of them once. It is held back by the camera, general clunkiness, and some atrocious sound at points, but a lot of it might already be addressed in a way. There are 7 campaigns and I'm not far in, but what I've played of here has fixed a lot of it. The camera behaves way better with obstacles. The fighting flows a little smoother, and there's no nuclear cheering.
See, for me, I didn't have this issue because I played
It also has
Xbox.
custom battles in it, so there's a lot to dig into.
Yeah.
Both the PC versions came out for $20, which is far too expensive for this kind of port. I did ask if they could put it on sale for the video, but I haven't heard back yet, so we'll see. I could
Let's look at Steam right now. Nope, still $20. Oh wait, you could buy it for $30 if you want both. Oh, that's nice. Damn. Almost had me, Mandalore Gaming.
Crusaders
Almost
the
had
same
me.
way you recommend like a really violent B movie. It's violent and silly, and you can't believe some parts they think you'll take seriously. But you can see that this is a cool idea, and you wish they had more time and budget. But maybe that couldn't help as much as you think because this is so different. Even that comparison doesn't feel fair because
Holy
this is a
shay's
genuinely
about that.
tactical game. It's something unique. I'm sure there's a lot of people who picked this up for the first time as a kid or a teenager on Xbox, and for them it was an awesome game.
Yep.
In a lot of ways they were right because the core gameplay holds up. It's just those details that a lot of people take for granted that do hold it back. You know, the idea game won't try to blow up your ears sometimes. That's it for now, but October is coming. I might have time to talk about a smaller horror game or two because, unfortunately for us all, another adventure game video is in the works. One far darker than the Druids. I'll see you then. Maybe.
Oh
Okay. So, yeah, he had a few issues wrong there. I personally thought the game was great. I wouldn't necessarily say 10 out of 10, but I would definitely give it like 8 or 9. It was really awesome. Gameplay worked well. It actually worked really, really well. There were times that I will admit that I like couldn't see at all on the map. But the final mission that he's talking about for Kendall and Rainier's campaign is fucking brutal. Each campaign, Rainier and Kendall's, is pretty much a breeze compared to the last missions. Because both of their last missions is the exact same, and both of them take about an hour. Rainier's campaign is surprisingly harder than Kendall's. It's kind of weird, but Rainier's campaign, he has one less unit to work with, so he's got less dudes at his disposal to help him. But secondly, he is the damage. His orc riders are only there to get SP, and his archers are just there to heal him. He's the damage, so you have to play Rainier and just hack away, switch to his cavalry, tell them to zigzag and heal, and then switch to your archers, put a fucking tree of healing down while you're fighting level 50 fucking Inkablosa demons. But that mission takes an hour. I'm not joking, it takes an hour, because you gotta fight through all that shit, get to the Inkablosa, which you can't do anything to it, but you have to be there so you could clear out the Inkablosa spitters so that way your Bone Dragon can shoot at it. As Kendall, you don't have to worry about that. I've literally played Kendall so many times that all I've done is just say, hey, battle balloon, go straight to the edge of the map, boom, done. He just immediately crashes into it. Mission's done, all I gotta do is fight to the teleporter area. And then once you're inside the demon, it's easy. Now, he thinks it's disappointing that it's not tactically requiring for you to be this like tactical wizard to beat through it. But I think it makes a little bit of sense from a lore standpoint that Inkablosa wasn't expecting someone to just jump inside of him and fucking blow his heart up. No one was expecting this. So I think that's why it wasn't so heavily defended. But I'm not gonna make an exception for the game designers why the mission was so fucking like difficult. But he does seem to get a bit of the lore wrong. He does seem to get a bit of the story wrong. And some of the issues he talks about is strictly the PC port. He doesn't talk about the Xbox port at all. Now, that of course leaves me a bit skewed in my reaction here because it's like, I've only played the Xbox. I've seen from modders talking that the PC port is spaghetti coding. It's not coded well. But on the flip side, he does give it a fair review. I think he's a little too hard on it. Like, he's saying that certain story aspects are terribly designed. To me, it sounds like you're just not interested. Because that's what that sounded like when he's talking about Lucretia. You're supposed to be immersed in Lucretia's storyline, what's going on with Veland, what's going on with her life. And he's just totally dismissing it, just going, this is boring, I don't want to hear it. Well, if you're not going to hear it, then yeah, you're going to miss out on the story. That's really what's coming off as to me. I don't know anything about this guy. I've never seen any of his videos. So I don't know if he's usually like that with storylines where he just dismisses it, doesn't give a fuck. But I will say that for a reaction to draw new players in, he did a pretty good job. Because I could see a lot of players who've never played the game just jump on into it. Yeah, let's see through some of the comments here. Oh, here we go. Can we talk about how someone actually lights the fire arrows? Yeah, there was a lot of details in the game that were really surprising, because no other game, even to this day, does that. But, I always thought the game was pretty well done, really interesting. I just wish there was more of it. But according to this guy, he's like, it's good fun, but that's it. He doesn't seem to really care too much. Oh well. You can't please everybody, you know. At least he gave it like a fair review. As I said, there were some things that he said that I was just like, what? What the fuck are you talking about, kid? Like, the storyline being terrible, at what point? At what point was it terrible? Like, it's all about character building. Because there's many, many things that I've seen, like Breaking Bad. Everyone remember Breaking Bad? Everyone was frothing at the fucking mouth about Breaking Bad. Yo, man, did you see that episode where Walter did something incredibly stupid? But, mind you, he's the smartest guy in the whole Breaking Bad series. But he did something so fucking stupid that makes no fucking sense no matter how I explain it. But man, it was so good because it's Breaking Bad. Yeah, I was one of those people who hated the Breaking Bad because I said it's a dumb show. There's nothing fucking good about it. But yeah, everyone frothed at the mouth how good it is. I guarantee you this guy might actually be one of those people like that. And then here he is criticizing the story in this game, which is actually well put together. And he's saying it's bad. Oh well. I take it personally. Fuck you guys. I take it personally because look, I get all these videos. I do all this on Kingdom Under Fire because I'm so immersed in the story. It's so interesting. Like, what do you expect the characters to do? Do you expect Lucretia to just stand there and monologue about the state of Veland? Oh, this is where I grew up. This is where I lived. This is where I am ridiculed because I'm a dark elf. But at the same time, I hold all the political power because I'm a middle-aged dark elf woman, which is rare in my species. And I'm actually a really strong commander, really powerful in combat. Let me monologue about how I believe Veland should be ruled by... No, that's boring. Instead, let's see her flesh out her personality. She is vulgar, she is a little combative, and she's a little disobedient at times, but there's good reason for it. That worked well for me. I don't know what would work for this guy. It is pretty funny though that he calls Rainier Sauron, but just, you know, the Baywatch version. I thought that was pretty funny. A little good chuckle there. The fucking sound blast though was just great. I love it. Good God, he loses a fight to like 5 infantry units, and all you hear is boom, like just fucking blast it. Again, never had that issue on the Xbox. Overall, I think it was just fair. I'm still gonna give it a dislike though, because fuck you. Saying the story was bad, fuck you. I hope he does review the other game though, A War of Heroes. I guess you could technically say that he did do it by the beginning here. But, yeah, War of Heroes, I would say gameplay-wise was actually really bad. Because it was trying to copy Blizzard. But story-wise, it was really fucking good. It was really good. But again, judging by how this guy just is very dismissive of the story, he might not even like it. He may say it's terrible as well. Oh well. Besides, that's been for your 700. I'm out. I hope you guys enjoy this reaction. This is like legit. Whereas other fake reactors exist out there, which is disgusting in my opinion. Ethically speaking, that's just disgusting. Like when you see these like million subscriber dudes reacting, they're always like, they'll watch something and they'll be like this, and the guy will say something and they'll go, wow, blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, no one's that expressive. No one is that expressive. So this is what you get. See you guys next time. As always, keep up with me on Discord. And yes, you're going to see 20 million faces of me because that's what I want to see in my dreams. Just 20 million faces of me.